What is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the show. My name is Jake Klein. I already screwed that up.
It's like a robot. It's the same thing every time.
I know.
How do you do that?
I don't know.
It's like perfect, too.
What's up?
What's that?
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the Last Flight Show. I'm your host, Jake Klein. Joining me is, as always, Mr. Matt Hicks, owner of Last Flight Calls.
Yo.
We have a pretty cool guest on today. If you guys have listened to any of the episodes, you guys have know that we have a duck with 50 ducks. And
just one duck, not 50.
yeah, just one duck. But we, in our intros, we track this duck and just watch where it's going. And so today we're going to talk to the brains behind that whole operation. Greer, we're going to call him once we go on the break here. But before we get into that, do you want to check? I mean, we checked on our duck a little bit ago, but really hasn't been doing very much right now.
He's moved like 150 miles north.
He's,
so he moved 150 miles north, and now he's just chilling.
He's pretty much happy where he's at.
Bouncing around right there where he's at.
Yeah.
Now, there was another shoveler that was banded with him, or I should say she was banded with him at the same time, around the same time, and she has moved about 1,400 miles north, about the same. Right before he started moving, she moved 1,400 miles straight north. She's up on the border of Oklahoma and Texas right now.
Why do you think they do that? Why do you think, that one goes so far and then one doesn't?
I really don't have a clue. I mean,
you think maybe it's like a homing range, like somewhere they're used to going? Maybe they came from, or
I don't know. I'll have to ask Greer to see what he thinks, because I really don't know why one would, leave and go, so much further than the other.
Yeah.
Other than the one is a hen and the other's a drake. I don't know.
Yeah.
If the hen's been bred and now she needs to go find, a net, nesting ground now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, guess we can ask Greer.
Yeah. That would be a good topic for him.
That's why he's coming on.
That's why he's coming on.
No, I just want to make sure you didn't put this thing on a goat or something, because it just ain't moving.
You gonna ask him that?
I am.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we've got plenty of things that we want to talk to Greer about, and some good topics. So
We'll talk about this giveaway right now.
Yeah, run that real quick.
So we're still for another week here. There's like 5 or 6 days left. Now, this is Friday, so if this don't go out till Sunday, just keep in mind, well, now you got 3 days.
Ooh.
But anyways, got the blocker, finisher, turkey chest pack, and this is what you're going to get from blocker, and then you're going to get this custom 100% cast acrylic spur pot call from Last Flight Calls. This is the Desert Ironwood Burl looking acrylic. It's pretty sweet. And, of course, matching striker with it, and you'll get the our deluxe 3-pack of mouth calls. So you get 3 mouth calls, a $200 pot call, and this finisher turkey chest pack from Blocker. So
I wish we had that this morning.
Yeah, we went turkey hunt this morning, and I was not prepared.
It gets warm, or got warm really fast. Like, it wasn't even cold when we got there, but
we ended up being on the run a lot today.
Yeah, today was, well, I mean, you get into these, we literally have, including today, 3 days left of season. So you get into these late season turkeys, and they gobble good on the roost. I mean, we got within 80 to 100 yards of them on the roost. There's 3 of them that were gobbling that we could hear. I mean, of course, you're not going to hear anything probably over 250 yards away from us because of how thick it is and the foliage in there. And then fly down. They just shut up and
didn't hear another gobble the rest of the morning.
We didn't. And even the longbeard that we found in the field strutting on our way out, he wouldn't even make a peep. So I don't know. They're hard to hunt when they're not gobbling. You pretty much got to know where they want to be, and at that point, it feels more like deer hunting to me, and that's just not. I don't know. I mean,
I don't deer hunt.
I still like turkey hunting and everything, but if I can't hunt a goblin turkey, then I'm ready to go home.
It is definitely a different dynamic to it.
Yeah.
If you
you can make it fun like we did. If you're moving on a bird.
I was getting antsy. I was like, all right, let's roll. So we set up on one spot, close to where they were roosting, because we could hear them gobbling. And, we sat there for a while and just nothing, no gobbles, no nothing was happening. So we decided to backtrack, go around and hit up into another corner of a different field that, we knew that they had been coming out pretty often in.
Yep.
And was like, well, we know there's traffic through here. Let's just set up here, wait a little bit. And as we were walking around, there was a hen, and she ended up seeing us a little bit and walked off to the woods and whatever. And then we got set up in the corner we wanted to be in. And, just sat there and
watched 3 jakes get around the field.
Yeah, and then we got up from there and went back to the original field that we were at from a different angle. And there's 3 jakes out there, and they were just doing their thing. Head down, feeding around, back and forth, whatever.
Yep.
And by that time, it was time to kind of start heading back to the truck, and because we got to do this podcast, and at 10 a.m. So start heading back to the truck, and all of a sudden, so like there's this big field, then there's a gap in the trees to the next field, to up where the truck is, and there's just a tom up there strutting around.
Yeah.
We're just like, are you freaking kidding
And
me?
there's a big bird too.
And we literally walked through there twice that morning, really.
Yeah, yep.
From the truck and then circling back to get into a different position. And it's just like, what the heck?
I know.
So we roll, we put it in cruise control. We like hustle up this ridge line close to the river, because it's like a cliff.
Yep.
Hustle around. And then we're looking, and we're like, we don't know where he's at. Got the binos out. We're in a good spot, really. And we just kind of keep peeking around. Next thing you know, we're like, he's right there in the shadow.
Yeah.
And he had seen us.
Yeah.
And by that point, it was pretty much over.
Yeah.
So hustled around, because he made around this way. So we hustled around this way. Well, he ended up just putting it in park.
Yeah, he didn't even
And
go.
we were laying over here because there's a path that he was going down, and I was waiting at the end of that path. Well, he just ducked into the woods and just sat.
Yep.
Like just sat there in the middle of this grass path that's probably 20, 30 yards wide.
Yep.
And, we had to get going. So I backtracked around, and Jake went the other way and met up at the truck. But Jake ended up seeing him again, and he was in that grass path. And, it was just like...
Yeah, I walked up on him, and he was like, looked like a goose laying on a nest. Like he was just laying down on the grass. And
what was he, 100 yards from the truck?
Not even.
It's just like, that's what really sucks.
Well, at that point, it was just like you and I were talking about. Like we just get to the point to where you're like, okay, it's not going to happen. So you just kind of let all of your guards down, and you start walking, and then it's just like, shit, there he is.
Yeah, I mean, literally, you would have thought like there was no turkeys around. Yeah. And a lot of times, like with this property we're hunting, there's a decent sized river, and they roost on the other side. And when they fly down, they fly across the river and down onto the bank, up the hill, and they're in the fields.
Yep.
But the river was up, so we were like, well, maybe they just jumped down where they were and went into a different direction with some other fields and didn't cross the river to where we were, because there was zero action other than the jakes and that one hen. There literally was no action going on. I mean, it was just absolutely dead.
Yeah.
And so then we had already walked through all this stuff. So our guards were kind of down when we were walking, and I don't know. You almost got to hunt your way out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
because you just never know.
Right.
And because he evidently took a completely different path than we ever thought. Just so.
Yeah. He'd have thought we could have killed him in the field right next to the truck.
I know. I should just leaned up against the tire.
We could have walked 40 yards and sat down and killed a bird.
Know. That's gross.
Eventually.
Because we probably walked 2 miles a day.
Yeah, we walked a lot.
Probably. I mean, we were sweating.
Swimming through mosquitoes.
I mean, it was like 75 degrees.
Yeah.
Which is great, but it was humid.
Yeah.
100% humidity, it felt like, and no air
terrible.
moving. I mean, I'm still covered in bug spray.
Yeah, I know.
And, but yeah, that was the morning.
Yeah, it was eventful. So we wanted to start this podcast at 10 o'clock, which is normally the time we shoot for. Matt and I was talking. I think we're going to maybe change the time of the podcast a little bit. We're not going to change the day, but we'll change the time. Maybe the next couple of weeks, kind of go down to like an evening record. and get some more people on here.
So you might see it come out a little later than usual.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
nonetheless, really won't be affecting anybody,
Right.
really.
And I mean, realistically, we could do it to where every podcast airs, Monday morning, something like that.
Yeah, could do that.
If that gives us, we record on Friday
Or Sunday night, so
Yeah.
that then people can listen to it on the way to work or
Yeah.
something. Or
Because I mean, realistically, it's a production.
It is,
We have to
dude,
we take the audio and then the video, and then the audio is not linked to the videos, and then we have to match them, and then we
sync
have
it all up.
Yeah.
And I mean, we got spreadsheets of guests.
Yeah.
And the schedule of
crazy.
recording with recording notes.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this is.
It's
It's a production. That's why we got Jake here to help produce this thing, because I ain't got the time. I ain't got enough time in the day to do it all. It just ain't gonna happen.
For sure.
Putting it all together and getting the guests and the topics, and even just setting it up for the day. Takes time.
Yeah, it's definitely not just show up and hit record. I mean,
No,
it's a it's a process getting started. But luckily, Greer was willing to give us. I texted him and said, "Hey, we're going to push this back to 10:30," and because at that time we were still working on this bird, and so it's really hard to leave a turkey like that when you work so hard to get him. But
yeah, what else we got? We ready to get him on, or we got one more thing?
Nope, I think that's it.
All right.
I think we're going to take a quick break, and we'll get him on the phone, and then we'll come back.
All right,
sound good?
See you soon.
All right, we'll be right back.
Welcome to the Last Flight Show, brought to you by Last Flight Calls and Gear. This episode starts now.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. On the phone, we have Greer Smith. He's the brains behind the 50 Ducks operation. Greer, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Brains can be a lot of brains or a little brains. It's yet to be seen, but I appreciate it.
Matt's the brains behind Last Flight, so I mean that's not saying too much, I guess.
Yeah, that's not saying a lot.
That's a good point.
All right, Greer, tell us a little bit about yourself and 50 Ducks, and how what made you want to start this thing.
Yeah, man. I think like you guys and like most of your listeners have just been a lifelong waterfowl enthusiast. Worked in the corporate world after college, and then about 3 years ago, me and my father were on a duck hunt in Venice, Louisiana. We go every year. My mom's from kind of out that way, and so it's a good way to visit family and hunt and fish and just enjoy the area. There aren't many ducks in Middle Georgia where we are from, so you got to travel to do it. But there every year, we had a guide who was not the best guide, and he ran us up on a mud flap. And so we were stuck there for an exorbitant amount of time waiting for some tides to change so we could get off that mud flap. And we were looking up at the sky, and we had the conversation that everyone has, which is, I wonder where the ducks are. I wonder why they're here some years and not others. And that sent me down a rabbit hole, and I started looking up. I came across an article from some folks in Louisiana who were putting GPS devices on blue-winged teal. Called those folks out there, asked them about it, found out that there was this group, and there are probably 15 or 20 different organizations in North America that are putting these trackers on. Called them all, was getting a bunch of information, and thought, if I'm as curious about this, I'm sure other folks are as well too.
Right.
And so that was kind of the impetus behind starting 50 Ducks. We figured it was a great way to get more people in more places engaged with waterfowl movements from a conservation standpoint. And we've done a really great job of getting it in front of kids. My big push is to get it to schools. And I'm pleased to say that since we started doing that this past fall, we are in 30 states and 4 Canadian provinces in classrooms with school materials and people using the tracker to follow along.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So do the kids get to handle the GPSs and look at them and to just see kind of where the birds are? Do they get to actually see the birds get the GPSs put on them? Like what goes through that in the classroom?
Yeah. So a big part of what this is it's impossible to go to 10,000 classrooms a year,
Right.
and talk about, conservation and to bring feathers and the units and all this. And so we had to figure out how you can do it at scale and that you can meet a truly huge number of folks. And so 50 Ducks meets kids where they are today, which is with technology. So our platform is completely free to teachers. We have all sorts of lesson plans. And we make a real big push to get students to adopt a bird to make it a little more personal.
Okay.
And we have some videos and stuff that we'll send them and all that kind of stuff. But we've done really good at just being able to touch folks, at scale across the masses this way.
What ages or grades or what's the ages of these kids that are doing this?
It's the biggest response that we've had is from lower school and middle school teachers.
Okay.
A lot of our materials are kind of geared more towards those kids, and then we have some STEM-based materials that are more geared toward your high school crowd. But I think it really resonates more with the younger kids
Okay.
for whatever reason.
Probably, I would think that it's just because it's something new, like that it's not something that maybe some of the older kids have kind of seen something before, but maybe the younger kids are more intrigued because it's just something new and fascinating to them. Maybe, I don't know.
I certainly think it's fascinating.
So, I mean, when you go to catch the birds, what's the best practice that you found in doing that? Is it? I mean, we look at your Instagram and stuff like that, and we can see the netting and stuff like that. Is that the preferred way to catch them? Or is it the easiest? Or
Yeah, so we'll back up and kind of talk about the nonprofit partners that we've partnered with, who handle all of the actual banding of the birds. I get to go and enjoy and get in the way of the field crews is mostly what my role is when they're actually banding the birds, is just trying to stay out of the way.
Okay.
Our partners up at Jack Minor in Kingsville, Ontario, they've got it down to a science up there. They band a couple thousand ducks and almost 1,000 geese a year up there. And the way they have it set is they have two ponds, both probably quarter acre in size, half acre in size, right? And then between the two ponds is a little cut, and it's about 20 yards across. And so they've got a cage there where both ends of it that go to both of those ponds lift up. So most of the days, you just got it up, and they have troughs in the middle that they put corn in, and they've got it laid on gravel. So the ducks will be in there feeding. On a trap day, they'll just shut one end of it, and you literally sit in a deer stand, and when the trap is full of ducks, you pull a lever and the other side drops. So then you've got all sorts of ducks in the cage, and you can go in, handle them, and deal with them that way. So they've got it down to a science, and that's a really great deal. Makes it super easy, or easier, for those guys. Our partners at Tierra Davis, Manuel Grossolet, who runs our Mexico bird banding program, they don't have nearly as many permanent banding stations, just from a resource standpoint.
mm-hmm.
And so what you see him doing is using mist nets, which are those nets you're talking about on Instagram.
Yep.
Which is a very seldomly used process for catching ducks, because it's very, very time consuming, very hard, and the success rate's a lot lower.
Okay.
He is able to catch a bunch of other song and water birds when he's doing this, which he will also band, not with GPS trackers, but with your leg bands.
Right.
But he also will use swim-in traps and confusion traps, and those have a much higher success rate than those nets that you're seeing on Instagram.
Very cool.
And those swim-in traps and those confusion traps, they're just made out of chicken wire, and that's pretty standard operating procedure. I mean, the state government, state DNRs, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, those guys have got it down to a science, and there's all sorts of awesome literature about best practices and how to do all this kind of stuff. And so it's just kind of following in their footsteps. There's a pretty good path to how you're supposed to do it.
Very cool. So how do you, looking at the GPS, it looks like it's just like attached to its back. Like how do you actually attach the GPS to the duck?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that is a lot more complicated. It requires a great deal of government permits, and the folks that attach them have to do trainings and stuff like this, because as you can imagine, you're fixing a backpack to a duck for the rest of its life. And so there's a way to do that is the least harmful and the least intrusive way for the waterfowl. So a couple things right off the back is your tracker has to fall within a size range.
Okay.
You can't put a GPS tracker on a bird that weighs more than 3% of its total body weight. That's the standard from the Bird Banding Laboratory, the BBL, and Canadian Wildlife Services, CWS. So we use 10 to 15 gram backpacks. And for a mallard, that's, a big mallard weighs 1,100 grams. So they're big birds, right? So definitely falls in that range. You put it on the bird's back, kind of in the center of its back, where when it puts its neck back, it can't touch the tracker, so it won't rub on it. You put it on a foam pad, and then you build a harness that comes up under the wings and up just under the breastbone, and then you make a loop and put it over the neck. So you build a harness. It's called a Dwyer style harness.
Okay.
The scientific term for it.
Very interesting.
And I learned too that not every species can get a backpack.
That's true. Absolutely.
Go through that a little bit.
Is that because of the size?
Well, some of your diving ducks. He knows more about it.
Yeah, so you can't put them on a diving duck because it will mess up their. I'm sure there's a better term for it, but their aerodynamics when they're diving.
Okay.
And so it'll affect them. You can't put it on a tree, a cavity nesting bird either, like a wood duck, because they are squeezing in and out, obviously, of a cavity, a tree, a box, whatever.
Makes sense.
And they have a raised solar panel on the back, and they of course are raised on their back, and so they could get stuck when they're in the tree or going into the tree, and so it's a bad deal. So you can't put it on either of those type of birds. But some organizations that are doing studies on both diving ducks and wood ducks, you can implant a device. You can surgically implant a device in the breast of a duck these days. Of course, that's not rechargeable, and then there'll just be a little antenna that comes out. That requires a vet and anesthesia, and if you want to talk about something that's expensive,
right,
it's surgically implanting GPS devices.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So we take no part in that. But yeah, so not every species can handle a tracker, and like you say, for size, the technology that these trackers has is so amazing. They can make these things. They put GPS trackers on butterflies now, called the Monarch Project. So they can make these things that weigh an 1/10 of a gram.
That's insane.
And the smaller your device gets, the less it can do, of course, because the heavy part of it is the battery.
Right.
And so on the Monarch Project, it's different and it's not real time. And they have to go by a cell tower. They have to fly past the transmitter for it to transmit. But as far as that goes, they can make these transmitters super small.
Wow, that's crazy.
And the ones on these ducks that you're doing, they're updating, all the stinking time. How many updates a day? How many updates a day do you get out of your GPS? Out of one of your?
Yeah. So it's the easiest thing in the world to do. I can go on to the back end right now, and you can change it, and you can get updates as often as every minute.
Oh,
right?
really?
So you can, but it will drain. It all comes with a cost with your battery life.
Sure.
So what we do is we do it once a day, and the way the device works is every hour your GPS device will ping, right? And so when it pings, it takes the altitude, the flight speed, it takes a heading, it gives you a battery reading, a GPS location, 3-axis acceleration, and then a couple other stuff. And from that, you can deduce a billion different things. So it does that every hour is what we have them set for.
Okay.
And then twice a day, our devices will turn on, for lack of a better word, and they will look for a cell tower for 15 seconds. And if they cannot find a cell tower in that window, they turn back off and try again 12 hours later. If they find the cell tower, they transmit the data to it. If they don't, it just backlogs, that 12-hour period's worth of data points, and then tries to transmit it the next day. So when these birds are nesting, in Prairie, Canada, where there isn't cell service, you might go a week, 2 weeks, a month without getting any data from a bird. But then as soon as it gets within cell service during one of its 2 transmission windows, you get a month's data sent to your computer that day.
Oh, okay.
Now there's one on there right now, that pintail. It's like 67 days without an update. What do you think's up with that one?
Which one is that?
The one that's still in Mexico, heading. On my end, it's still in Mexico. It's like 67 days since its last update, I think.
Let's see.
I was just kind of curious. I've been
one,
watching it.
that one could be a mortality. It could have died in migration, and it just hasn't, and we won't know that because it won't transmit to us. I find it hard to believe that that pintail is still in Mexico. So it is either
Right.
migrated somewhere where there isn't cell service, and it was in flight during migration, during its transmission windows.
Or fell off and sank or something.
Yeah, the transmitters don't really fall off, so to speak. Could have been a bird of prey could have killed it. Who knows? It's tough to be a duck in a lot of ways.
What do you still have, like the first GPS unit that you ever put on a bird? Is that still active?
We put one on. There's so much that goes into it before it ever goes live, right? And the group that we partnered with out of Mexico, that fellow Manuel has been doing GPS banding work for about the last decade.
Okay.
Down there for various folks, for scientific research, etc. And so he shared with us some of the data. The first one that he put on with us as a partner it was a blue-winged teal that we named Fat Daddy. And that bird was in 2023, the spring of 2023.
Okay.
Put it on then, just so that we could see if we could build the map that you see now, with some live data feeding to it, work through the problems there. But no, that bird lived for about a year, and then we lost transmission. It migrated from Mexico City area all the way up into Hooker, Oklahoma, turned south, and then we lost it in South Texas.
Man, that's got to be
That was our
cool. Just like
That
your
was our
first
first one.
Your first,
Yeah.
just watching your first bird, just that's got to be a cool feeling. Just watching the updates and thinking of how cool that would be. That this is kind of like a new deal for 50 ducks and all the hard work that I'm sure that you guys have put into it, just to be able to see those updates and that bird moving and things like that. That's got to be a pretty cool feeling.
Man, it was rewarding, and it's rewarding now as I sit here and look at it, because it was a dream for a while before it became a reality, and,
Right.
and it's still not what we want it to be, but it's headed in that direction. I mean, it's got good traction with it now. It's starting to get a little more. Everything's harder than you think it is. Everything's more expensive than you think it'll be, and everything takes longer than you think it will.
Oh, yeah.
And that couldn't be any more true for this. But we look at the map now, and we've got birds in all four flyways, and we don't have a ton of birds, but it gives you a little glimpse into how cool waterfowl are. Our goal is never to have 1,000 birds on this website.
Right.
That's just financially, that's impossible for a lot of reasons. But to have 25 that we have right now,
Yeah.
I think that's a tremendous success in our first full year of doing this.
Right.
So yeah, it's fun to log on there. I get geared up and jazzed up when I log on there and look at them. Like, we got Split Reed's bird right now, who is currently a hen shoveler that is currently migrating north in mid-May. Like, this is a lot later than most people would think that birds would be going that way, but it just shows how different species of these awesome creatures can be.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking about it in the pre-show or whatever you call it. But anyways, so like, was that bird and Last Flight bird, were those banded at the same time?
Yep, they're banded at the same time, same day.
So, we were wondering, like, why is ours like 150 miles north, but then this one is 1,400 miles north, kind of in a different heading? What brings that on, you think?
That's the randomness and the awesomeness of nature, and that's you just don't know what these birds are going to do.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at those four widgeon that are all the way from Great Falls, Montana, to just north of Edmonton, to one's on the Great Salt Lake and one's in Elko, Nevada, right? All four of those widgeon were banded the same day in Tijuana. And now there's 2,000-mile difference between the furthest north and the furthest south of them.
That's just crazy.
So,
Do you ever see,
and
like, do birds normally that you've been able to see, do birds normally come and go from the same places generally year after year? Like, do they take the same flight pattern, or do you see them sometimes vary and go somewhere else first and then to their destination? Or, have what's the difference there that you've seen?
Well, we hadn't been doing it for long enough yet to have multiple years of data.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to like on our historical tracker, we've gotten a ton of information from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, from USGS, from various state researchers that we've put on this historical map. There's 1,350 birds on there going all the way back to 2005.
Okay.
And if you look at some of those tundra swans, there are 50 tundra swans on there.
Yeah.
And if you look at that,
Those are cool.
the site fidelity that you have there is incredible. Like and we've done some write-ups on it, and these snow geese too. They'll fly all over the world, and then they will go back to within a half mile of where they nested for multiple years in a row.
That's crazy.
Yeah, some of them lesser snow geese are tip of Russia coming all the way down. But yeah, like you said, they just go back to the same places. Somehow they just know, I don't know, they know their way around. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for you guys to be,
incredible.
as young of an organization as you are, and to be able to do what you guys are doing right now is phenomenal. And it's only going to grow and get bigger as more people really understand what you're doing. I mean, people have been tracking, waterfowl or whitetail or turkeys or whatever for a long time, but to be able to log into the app and and see maybe a bird that you named or sponsored, or any bird for that matter, and just see where that bird is going is really cool, especially because you can see, we've looked, we start every podcast with checking on the bird. So
Right.
when we've seen where they've gone somewhere and they've hung out and they've moved elsewhere. It's just like, it's a whole eye opener on what these birds are actually doing. Because, obviously once they leave, you have no clue where those birds go. You have no clue
Right.
what they're doing. You don't know how long they've flown 50 miles and they've stayed there for another 2 weeks, or did they fly 1,000 miles and stay there? But to be able to actually track them just by logging into an app is one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Well, I appreciate that, and yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, that's the question that all duck hunters and bird watchers and waterfowl enthusiasts. I mean, that's the question that everyone has from the birds you see on your backyard feeder, where they're here and then they're gone. Or when you're in your duck hole and they're here and then they're gone. Where
Right.
did these birds go,
Yeah.
and where did these birds come from?
Yeah.
And you can't ever answer that question at scale, just because of the logistics of how many places there are in the world where these ducks are going, and how expensive it is to tag them. But you can take a small glimpse of that with the 50 ducks tracker. We get a ton of emails for people reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, can you come band birds at our place? We'd like to know where these are." And that's been a huge positive reception of people just sharing the same morbid curiosity that I have about it.
Right.
Just wondering why they go and where they go. And I've been the most amazed at how fast and how high and how far they travel, like in a single day, like in a single period.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that these birds could fly, close to 100 miles per hour, pretty regularly.
What's their altitudes normally?
Well, like that split reed bird that's flying north right now, that one never got particularly high. I say that its highest was about 4,000 feet.
Okay.
And then
that's not high. That's not very high.
Not relatively.
That's crazy.
Exactly right. That's relatively speaking. Like last year, one of the ones we got pinned on our Instagram and our Facebook, we had a shoveler that flew at 17,319 feet. At its
17,000.
peak altitude.
Do you think that's real? You think
17,000
that's
feet.
real?
I mean, it's got a cruising altitude. You ought to read it. It flew. Let's see.
That's
For
ridiculous.
for 6 of 26 flight points reported on this bird's northern migration, it was above 15,000 feet.
That's crazy.
They get up there in the the prevailing winds,
Whatever
the jet
wind,
stream.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
cruise.
just like, and just take off, just
That's
cup up and
wild.
go.
I mean,
I wouldn't have thought
amazing.
17,000 feet. I mean, that is like,
that's up there.
yeah, that's insane.
And I guess you really wouldn't know. I guess you can kind of generally, I guess, assume or try to calculate how high. If these birds get to a certain height, at what point is it too high for the GPS to actually ping? You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like some of these birds that just go AWOL for a while. Maybe you don't get a transaction, for a couple of days, and then they just end up
Yeah.
somewhere way away. I mean, do they get up high
they
enough to
descend,
where
they're-
they can, just basically cruise and they're out of GPS range for any of the,
Yeah.
and then when they drop back down low enough, and that's when it hits. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
100%. And that goes to when they're in flight, you often will miss their GPS window or their transmission window because
Yeah.
of just what you're saying. They're too high.
Right.
But it backlogs that information on the device. And sometimes you get a bad reading. And that's very, like, you can look at it and you can tell when you get a ping that's wrong. But that is 99.9% of the readings you get are accurate. And you can tell when one's bad because some of the numbers we don't put on the website are funky.
Right.
And you can just remove that one.
So you got a lot of like offline data from these other resources. Does that show altitude with that data that you got from there too, or no?
So we are currently, as we speak, as soon as we get off this call, I'm
Yeah.
going to get on another call, and we're working to put altitude and flight speed on all of the live birds,
Sure.
and all of the birds that we have the data from. Some of these older birds, they did not have those readings, and they didn't publish those results. So yes and no.
I
to
got
answer your
you.
question.
I was
The
just
ones
kind of
we have it, we'll
curious.
put it on.
Yeah. On the Canada geese, what's their normal altitude on a Canada goose?
And I can't speak to that with any
Okay.
sort of degree of confidence.
Yeah, I didn't know because it's like you always see geese migrating, but you never see ducks migrating. They just show up, which makes sense if they're too high. They're not going to see them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But you always see geese migrating. I was just kind of curious
Yeah.
what's the ceiling for a Canada goose, or you know what I mean? Or some of these lesser snow geese that are traveling from Russia, the tundra of Russia down, through the Central Flyway,
Right. You read those newspaper stories and about the bird strikes though on planes with those Canada geese and with different kinds of geese that are up there pretty high.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, those are reported every now and then.
Yeah.
So if they still get on up there, I'm sure.
What's the longest recorded flight path so far since 50 Ducks has started? How long or how far has the furthest bird traveled?
And that's a good question. We've got some of that repurposed data on there from some snow geese, some lesser snow geese that have traveled.
those things are crazy.
I assumed it was a snow goose.
Look at the all-time
Yeah,
46,000 miles all-time on.
Yeah, on the app, the all-time leader is 46,000 miles. We didn't ban those. The furthest one that we've got active right now, I think, is we've got a pintail in Manitoba, in Thompson, Manitoba, that was banded in Mexico City. And that bird has traveled 3,285 miles in 86 days.
And it could be even
and it's-
further because it's been 6 days.
Yeah, I bet
it's
that
up-
bird is
but
nesting.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's definitely out of cell range.
Yeah. But that bird, I mean, and it flew, if you look at that, it flew basically directly north the whole way.
It did.
So that's the furthest pintail. And then we have a mallard that we banded in Kingsville, Ontario, that is currently just outside of Montreal, Journey, which was sponsored by Dr. Duck, Dennis Luzier. And that bird's migration is a lot more interesting. That one flew to Newark and then flew down into Trenton, New Jersey. And then it flew east. It did not migrate south for the winter. It migrated east. And then it flew north, and it's up around Montreal right now. So that one's a completely different migration. And what we're seeing with some of these Jack Miner birds, is those are, I don't know how
They're
familiar you guys
interesting.
are with the Yeah, with the
Um,
game farm
yep, yep,
genetics.
yep.
So a lot of, you read all this stuff about Great Lakes mallard, East Coast
Hmm.
flyway mallards, because of all of these pen raised birds that gets released. And these Jack Miner birds are,
Yeah, they're game farm for the. Yeah,
it's there's some of them are semi-migratory, some of them are completely non-migratory. Like,
yeah,
there's a few of them, if you look at the map, that are clustered, that are still around Kingsville, that were banded in September, that have never done anything. I mean, they sat there through a harsh winter
right.
on the northern shores there, and just, didn't never moved. And then some of them flew, so like I said, we got Journey in Montreal. We had a couple up north of Ottawa, the North Bay. But for the most part, those birds are semi-migratory. None of them have done what these birds banded in Mexico, your true migratory ducks are
Mm-hmm.
doing.
Yeah, I've seen some data to where these game farm, these East Coast mallards, east of the Mississippi for the most part, they'll hit kind of the Ohio River, that line, and then they'll start going east and west. They kind of stop going south. Is that that's kind of what you see too?
There's one singular bird that was banded at Jack Miner that is currently south of Kingsville, Ontario, and I mean,
But it never crossed
we
the Ohio
have
River either.
we have a bird that flew as far south as Columbus, Ohio. That was
Yeah.
the furthest south any of those birds went.
Yep. That
And we
bird's
banded
crazy.
and we banded 35 of them.
see,
So
we're just north of Dayton a little bit, so that bird's pretty close to
It
us.
looked like he flew south and then came back north.
Yeah, he hung around till early May, and then he went back north a little bit. Now he's hanging out again.
It really hasn't
Mhm.
traveled very far.
I've been watching him because he's local to me, really.
right, and then you also kind of lose track of how much some of these birds fly around just
Yeah,
being alive. Like, that bird
yeah, oh,
doesn't
yeah.
look like it's flown very far, but it's flown 1,500 miles over the course of 160 days.
Yeah.
So,
He was active down there for a while.
mhm.
And that's what's kind of cool, and that's kind of what I was talking about. It's just like, okay, so even though the birds have, left your area, and you wonder where these birds have gone, I mean, the app right here can show you exactly where the bird has traveled. So it's just like the bird may not be far away from where you last saw it at. You just can't see it because you wouldn't,
Right.
without the GPSs, you would have never known where these birds are. It could have flown all the way north and not stopped, you know what I mean? Or it could have flown, south 15 miles and then east 15 miles and then north 3,000 miles.
Right.
And that's what's cool. And
Right.
so for the listeners and for what you guys are seeing, Matt messing around over here on his phone. And
I'm watching the map.
He's on the app right now, so you can download this app and you can watch these birds and get an understanding of what we're talking about. And and it might help you too. I mean, you can sponsor some stuff and help 50 ducks there. But you can. It's so cool to be able to get on here and see, where these birds are going, what they're doing, and just kind of answer some of the many questions that any waterfowl enthusiast may have as far as, what these birds are doing after they have left your area.
Yeah, couldn't have said any better myself. I mean, if you are into waterfowl, if you are into duck hunting, it is the cool. I mean, most all hunters have an appreciation for ducks. It's a cult culture. It's a cult community, and people are just love it, and I love it.
It's just that
And
mystery about it all that, you know what I mean? That just keeps you
Yep.
coming back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%. You can't ever figure them out, and we'll never figure them out completely. But this gives you a more intimate glimpse into the life of a bird,
Yeah.
and it
Very
puts it into
intimate.
perspective when you're in Louisiana and you kill a pintail, that bird might have come from Manitoba, and it's amazing.
Have you ever had anybody harvest a bird with a GPS on it?
We have, and we have on the side of them a phone number. It's got my phone number on the side of them.
Oh, okay.
And so we will mail you a replica, which looks the exact same as the transmitter itself, in exchange to get it back. Like, they're pretty expensive. I understand it's a once in a lifetime thing if you kill one. and I'm sad, but I'm happy for you, of course.
Right. Right.
I get it completely. So we just try and get it back and put it on another bird, and we give you a free membership to the app, and we send you a similar deal to what the feds
Yeah,
do.
there
I'll
you go.
screenshot a picture of where it's been, send it to you. So yeah, most hunters are super positive response when they kill one. They're excited. I act excited for them. I have to hide my sadness. And then send them all that stuff. But no, we've had a few killed. None of our birds that we've banded so far in Mexico have been killed by hunters, but we band all those in the spring, right?
Mhm.
So I imagine some of them might get harvested this fall. But we take pretty big measures on the app where you can't trophy hunt these birds. Like them being killed is random,
Right.
because we limit the zoom and we randomize the data slightly.
Yeah.
So what you see is kind of where the bird is until it leaves, and then we release the data on that archive map above it.
Right.
So the bird is kind of where it's being portrayed on the live map, but that's not exactly where it is.
Yeah, Matt and I were talking about the one day about potentially how cool it would be if we were to pack up our camera gear and then travel to wherever our last flight's bird was, and just
Never find it.
photograph the bird. But with it being, you know what I mean, that's I mean, and I like that about it. That way, somebody like you're talking about, like somebody that just is specifically out there
Yep.
to shoot a duck that's got a GPS tracker on it. They're not really able to do that without actually hunting the area of the bird. So,
But the offline and old data, you can zoom in. You can zoom in so far and see exactly where that bird was, which I think is cool. Once you get it offline, you can get real down
100%.
on it.
yeah,
Yeah, because at that point there's no
Yeah.
no harm, no foul
Which is
there,
cool.
and you can see exactly where the birds were from
Yeah.
every hour. And now
Right.
that we've built into the app where you can just hit play and watch it,
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
really
lot
cool.
easier just to scroll it forward and backwards,
Right.
and to look at them on big water bodies, to look at them when they're on rivers or
Yeah.
when they're feeding in cut cornfields, and you can zoom in and you can see hour by hour exactly where they went in that historical tracker,
right.
which is just as fascinating to me as the live tracker. Even though the live tracker it gets a much better response from folks, which I completely understand. It's the novelty of it.
I was kind of curious on these minor mallards that we've got here. Now we know like they've got a lot of game farm in them because it's the East Coast deal. Do you think that they will? You think they're just kind of floating in the wind, or you think they'll come back around Kingsville this winter?
It'll be neat to see.
That's
It'll be neat to see.
Yeah, I'm
And
excited to
Jack
see what that'll
Miner
do.
Jack Miner's been putting. I mean, they've been banding birds, and they have band return data for the last. They've been banding birds
Yeah.
for 120 years.
Right? Yeah. Incredible.
And so, or not 105 years. I think this was our 105th year since Jack Miner put the first one on. But anyway, I mean, they've been banning these birds for forever. And they've been keeping record return data for the last couple of decades. And they've had geese. They had a goose killed in California. They've had mallards killed in Georgia. They've had mallards killed out in Texas. So and of course that was some of that was back in the 70s, 80s.
Right. Older time.
Yeah,
Different
older
game
time. But
then.
they put on federal leg bands now as well, and so there's all sorts of return data that's getting turned back, and it seems like it's getting more and more regional. But it will be fun to see where these birds go in the fall.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if they'll just continue floating in the wind, or if they will kind of come back to home or not, or where they were last winter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. And they feed them real heavy at Jack Miner. They feed the ducks, they feed the geese real heavy, so they don't. There's never a food shortage issue from the sanctuary, like even when it gets real cold.
Right.
Which also probably plays some role in it, as well as these birds being maybe. We've never done any blood tests, but you can tell they've got some game farm in them.
Yeah. Size of bird and the way the bill's shaped and the feet and kind of those things.
Well, yes and no, because when we were putting when I was up there and those guys were putting trackers on them, like we were looking at them and trying to determine if they were, like, we didn't want to put them on game farm birds.
Right. You want this to go somewhere.
Right. I mean, from a observation standpoint, and and they're doing a light pollution study up there, which is what their main focus is on. And then I'm repurposing the data, of course, for the website and for the educational programs and to get interest going for it. So it's a different objective between us and them, but we're all working, towards the same goal. But no, I mean, we weren't looking at birds and like, that's a game farm bird.
Right.
It's not that easy, so to speak.
Yeah. Did you guys do any DNA samples when you put the backpacks on or not?
No, and I wish we had.
That'd have been cool to see what a 60% game farm versus a 20%, how they reacted.
100%. That would have been super cool. And those fellows at I'm going to say his name wrong, Levitsky Lab, who are doing the duck DNA thing. Have y'all seen that?
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, like that's super cool. And he's a geneticist basically. And his lab is doing all sorts of stuff with these game farm birds. And it requires more permits to draw blood from a duck, and it requires some folks that we don't have on staff to do it. And it required some permits that we didn't have. Was one of the holdups of doing it. But yeah, it would have been super cool if we'd been able to make that happen. Maybe in the future we will. Maybe we'll try and team up with some of those guys or some folks, get some colleges up there who are interested in doing that.
Yeah, that'd have been really cool. The whole game farm deal. I mean, that just, since I'm right here in Ohio, just piques my interest a lot because it just seems like the landscape for the mallard over here is just changing rapidly. Mm-hmm. In the last couple decades, it's just changed so much. It seems like,
So it's so counterintuitive to think that people who are releasing birds because they love mallards, who are releasing mallards because they love them, because they want to hunt them, and because they want more of them, are having what seems to be a very negative impact on the wild bird population. It's just very counterintuitive.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
That is wild. So we've talked a lot about, what 50 ducks, can do for, us as waterfowl hunters or waterfowl enthusiasts. And we know that you guys have put a lot of work into this, and it's time consuming. It's, it's costly. It's well worth it. And, but at the same time, it's just like, it takes a lot of work to make something like this happen. How can anybody that's listening to the podcast support the program or help 50 Ducks?
Great question. I appreciate the shout out. The main thing that we need is just more support. Just download the app, subscribe to it. If you're a waterfowl hunter, this is the cheapest thing you'll do waterfowl related this year. That's for sure.
Oh, definitely.
But also tell a teacher. Like I said, our big thing is getting into schools. Tell a teacher that might be able to use this in their classroom program. It's free to teachers. It always will be free to teachers who can use in their classroom. And also, it also shows we are a very small, as far as people who are using telemetry devices, there are DNRs, state governments, and the feds who are putting on 10 times this many trackers, with government money. Reach out to them and see if you can help them and learn a little something. I mean, those guys are doing great work with all of this GPS information, and we're just trying to make a little bit of it a little more public.
Right. I really like the fact that you guys are getting into schools the way that you are, because obviously it's cool for us as adults, to be able to see this, and but to be able to involve the younger generation, the generation that's going to be in our shoes within the next 10 years, to get a head start with them and really understanding, waterfowl, what they do, how we can track them, how we can help them, what disadvantages they have, what we're doing, as hunters or outdoors folk that negatively impact waterfowl. I'm sure that there's times to where you're going to be able to see, land changes or different things that we do that negatively impacts the waterfowl, and to be able to be at a young age and learn and what it is that 50 Ducks is trying to do, and just trying to get that first foot forward and understanding the process and the program and everything is only going to benefit waterfowl hunters, outdoor enthusiasts, and waterfowl in general, moving forward. So I think that's one of the coolest things about all of this is the fact that you guys are getting into schools and talking to younger generations, because those are the ones that really,
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones that you can really mold their minds and fill them full of knowledge right now that's only going to benefit everything and everyone as they get older.
Yeah, I mean, it's our job to plant that conservation
Exactly.
seed early.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, I'm not going to be doing this in 50 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're going to be.
Yeah, and we have, there's organizations like 50 Ducks that are putting all of this data out here. They're putting in all the work and the technology and the funds and everything, and I almost feel like it's it's our responsibility to push this word, to push the programs like this, and help the folks in our general areas and expanded understand and realize that there are folks out there that are doing things like this to benefit waterfowl and to benefit us. And I just think it's a whole group. So the more people that can get involved in this and share it and get people engaged in this is only going to make this whole deal better for everybody.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. I mean, you hit the nail on the head in that you got to reach more people in more places, and you don't know which one of them it'll stick with, but you got to get it in front of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of school age kids, and it will make a difference in some of them. And it teaches you about wetlands, and it teaches you about habitat use, and all sorts of stuff that are completely unrelated to a duck.
Right.
And the duck is just your Trojan horse, if you will, that gets you into the classroom, that starts this conversation about conservation. Because the truth about ducks is, if you don't have a dad or an uncle or someone in your family or a close friend who hunts and will take you as a kid, it's hard to get introduced to this.
Yeah.
There aren't as many people who just get into, social media has made it a little different, but you really have to have someone who does it to fall in love with it.
Right.
And so we're trying to reach the people who don't have that, who won't ever have that, who can have a small appreciation for these birds that so many hunters do.
100%. Do you guys have any upcoming events or anything like that you guys have scheduled that are maybe the public or somebody can be at or see or anything like that?
We will probably be at the Delta Waterfowl Expo. Ramsey Russell has become a friend throughout this process and is involved with 50 Ducks a little bit. So we will probably be at his booth at the Delta Waterfowl Expo this year. So if you want to come by and say hi, we'll be hanging out.
All right, there you go.
Maybe you've already said, but can anybody get a hold of you and sponsor a duck?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
if you email me,
anybody.
Anyone in the world can email me. It's Greer, Greer, at 50ducks.com. My email's all over the website, which is 50ducks.com. And if you just want to talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
We're always looking for more folks to partner with, to help fundraise for. We got an exciting thing that we're going to do this fall, where we're going to use these birds as a fundraising tool for schools. We're going to let schools adopt them, and then instead of doing a magazine drive or a bake sale, you can do a duck drive. And so the school name them, and then we'll give most of the money back to the schools as a fundraising effort. So if there are any teachers, school administrators out there who would like to do that for this fall, please reach out. We'd love to have you. We have I think we have some exciting stuff that I'm not going to announce yet, but we might be able to announce in the next couple of weeks. We might have a lot of birds this fall.
And if you're watching this right now, or you're listening to it in your car, or wherever it is that you're doing, go to 50 Ducks Instagram right now and follow them. It's free, and you can see everything that they're doing. And I promise you that it's going to be worth it to go follow 50 Ducks. It's one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. And honestly, we appreciate you coming on to the show more than you may realize. You're a cool guest and everything, but to be able to talk to you, personally and have you on the show and you willing to come on and talk about this stuff, man, we really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate being on here, and this is the fun part. I spend a lot of time, like so many folks, behind the computer, working in the weeds, and it's I mean, it's my passion. This is what I do.
Right.
And so it's awesome to be able to talk to folks who care about it, and see the vision. So I appreciate being on the show.
Very cool, man. Well, we're going to put the link to 50 Ducks website in the description of this podcast. And then we'll also add your email in there as well for them to be able to email you and chat with you a little bit. But we kept you on here about an hour, man, and I know that you got another phone call that you got to take. So was there anything that you wanted to add before we close this thing down?
I'm just waiting to see when that last light shoveler is going to take off.
Man, I don't know what he is doing. He's got a cinder blocks on his feet.
He's just chilling, man. He's happy where he's at.
When you originally reached out to me, a month back or whatever, and I gave you the option to pick a bird. Are you second guessing the one you picked at this point, or you still got a lot of faith in this Drake shoveler is going to take off on you soon?
I don't know. I was made a joke on the other podcast that you put it on a goat or something because he was just staying in this little home range in his little pasture or something. It seemed like he wasn't going anywhere. He
has found his home in the backyard of some old lady's house, and she's just going out there with corn piles every day. And he's like, I got no reason to leave, man.
Yeah, I'm good. No, I'm sure he'll take off here the next week.
We'll
I'm
see.
sure.
Hopefully he's got a mate and he's about to follow her. North.
All right, Greer, man. Like I said, we appreciate you coming on, buddy. We'll put all your information in the description of this podcast, and we look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, see you, man.
Yep.
Just like that.
Cut.
We do have a little bit of time here left that we're gonna basically
I gotta order lunch, bro.
I was getting ready to ask if you'd order lunch.
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, 50 Ducks, very cool organization. Greer's an awesome dude.
Yeah.
Like I said, we'll put the
What's the code?
what code?
There's a code for 50 Ducks. You can get some money off. There's a last flight code.
Was it?
What was it?
LFC.
Gosh dang it. I did this on the other one too.
Well, while he figures this out, we're going to put the website, the link to the website in the description of the podcast. And then we'll put Greer's email on there. But I mean, just to kind of, overall, it really is a cool deal. And like we've said before, people have been putting GPS trackers on waterfowl for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's different when, you have somebody in an organization like that's willing to talk to you anytime that you were to text, call, email, whatever it may be. And then on top of that, offer this app that you can download onto your phone and you can track these birds, and it kind of makes it a little bit more personal too. And, if you sponsor, a duck, then you get to name it, you get to do all of that, you get to choose the duck, and then you get to track it and wherever it may be.
Yeah, I think it's just the next step is being a waterfowl hunter, and instead of the "it flies, it dies" mentality, this is the conservation side and the more intimate and the more softer personal side, I guess, to it. But
well, I mean, that just comes with maturity as a waterfowl hunter and the understanding, and that's what we're trying to do right now. Is we're trying to get younger generations to understand what we've learned. You know what I mean, and that way they can basically put the right foot forward to begin with. What's that code? I know you got it up.
Yeah, LFC10. You get 10% off your 50 Duck subscription. So
that was close. I said LFC.
LFC.
I just didn't know if it was 10 or 25.
Yeah, LFC10. So 10% off. Save you a little bit of money. Why not?
Yeah,
Go do it.
Yep.
And I don't know. It's really exciting. So
yeah. All right. You have anything before we close this thing out? You're hungry, ready to eat.
Get some lunch. I'm ordering it right now.
Chipotle is on its way. All right, guys, that's going to be it for this episode. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you on the next one.
See ya. Later.